So as you can see from my t-shirt, I survived Oppenheimer 2023. Yeah, it's silly, but it's quite an event, quite a pop culture event. So I watched Barbie yesterday, last night with my office colleagues, and I watched Oppenheimer today with my college friend here at Hyderabad. Barbie was fun. It was tons of fun, and honestly speaking, I was hyped for the movie because it's directed by Greta Gerwig, and I've watched her previous films. And I would say I was just expecting a little more, maybe. But yeah, for what it was tons of fun. And it's funny because I rewatched Mission Impossible like day before on Thursday. Then I watched Barbie last night, and today I watched Oppenheimer. So it's like a 3 day, like back-to-back blockbusters I'm watching. And yeah, it was an awesome, fun experience. Everybody, like most people in the theater, were dressed all in pink. So yeah, quite a cultural event. Coming back to Oppenheimer, round one is done, and unfortunately, I did not watch this in IMAX because Hyderabad doesn't have an IMAX anymore. So I went to the theater which used to be an IMAX, logically the most natural thing. Uh, and yeah, Prasads Multiplex, Prasads Screen 6 or PCX, what do you want to call it? And it was a really good experience, and I tend to get lost in a lot of technical details, but before I do that, I just want to talk about the film. It's been a few hours that I watched the film, and it's just so intense. I still can't quite process it though. It's, like intense is the word I can use to best describe the movie because it's just so packed. It's so dense with dialogue and it's so plot heavy. There are a couple of timelines just stacked on top. A non-linear storytelling structure, which it's fun to see in a Nolan's film, and the black and white and the colors, the back and forth between those scenes, and like the shifting of perspectives, all those things were amazing, and the acting was amazing by all cast members. RDJ especially. I think Matt Damon could have done more. There were no memorable moments for Matt Damon's character. But yeah, like I'm probably forgetting a lot of people, but no spoilers. Kenneth Branagh as Niels Bohr, quite a fan service for people who studied science in 11th grade. Josh Hartnett looked like a Chad on screen. I haven't watched any of his previous films, but I knew he was in this one, and like his role was pretty solid. What I did not like as much though were the like Nolan is like infamous for not developing his female characters as much, and that is quite evident even here. Like you have Emily Blunt, you have Florence Pugh, like both amazing actresses, but not enough substance given to either of them. But I did like that one scene with Emily Blunt right at the end, but still, like it was just one scene, not the entire movie, where felt like a wasted opportunity. But yeah, RDJ and of course Cillian Murphy, awesome acting, like, and it makes me want to watch some of his other work or maybe even Peaky Blinders. But yeah, that was it for the film. Anything else am I missing? Oh yeah, the music. Ludwig Göransson's music is just so good at what he does. Ludwig has maintained that standard of quality which Hans Zimmer established in Nolan's previous films, and it's just awesome. Yeah. So coming back to the tech stuff, the how was the theater experience? Well, um, Prasad's is playing the 2.2:1 4K DCP presentation, the non-IMAX standard presentation, which is really good, and the sound was amazing as well. And Prasad's sound setup is very good. Like there were no complaints. I didn't have any complaints. The bass was amazing. Like at some scenes, the seats were literally vibrating, and you could feel that. And like that's the level of kind of the bass representation I expect when you're watching a Nolan movie. So that stuff was on point. The visuals left a little bit to be desired because see, you're watching this on a like a 72 foot high screen, and only about 45 of the feet of that screen is covered, and the rest of it is black bars. And this movie specifically is designed to be taking advantage of tall screens like Prasad's, like GT theaters around the world. And sadly, that's not the case, so you have to make do with the bars. While I did miss the switching aspect ratios, and I could tell which scenes were IMAX, like the projection was plenty sharp. I could tell which scenes were IMAX just through the sharpness and the lack of grain and all those things. And and those scenes felt like they were like framed to be shown on a bigger canvas. And while that was the only problem I had, the rest of the experience was pretty spot on, like I said. And honestly speaking, the sheer size, the width of the screen itself is enough to compensate for the lack of the vertical image. And you know what? It's like the ticket's like what, 300 rupees, and I don't think you'll get a better value for square footage per rupees value for any theater in India. So I'm not complaining, but it just would have been nice in some alternate universe where Prasad was still like an IMAX 70mm theater. And if you're wondering how is the real 1570 experience like for Oppenheimer, well, my friend Animesh flew all the way from Helsinki, Finland to London to watch Oppenheimer in BFI IMAX in 1570mm IMAX. So yeah, I just FaceTimed him and we discussed about experience. All right, so we both watched Oppenheimer, and Animesh, you watched Oppenheimer at BFI IMAX, one of the most prestigious theaters in the entire world. Okay, but before we get into that, we have our audience. And Animesh, would you please just introduce yourself? Because I personally know how much you love Nolan, how much you love science, and this movie was like a culmination of all the things you love in like a one movie. And just tell the audience how much this movie means to you. And yeah.
Okay, so I have a YouTube channel called Alt Infinity, and I haven't posted on it in a long time, but hopefully soon. But I am also doing a PhD in autonomous vehicles and robotics, and the reason I'm doing it is because of Christopher Nolan. So his impact on my life has been very, very significant, and
I can't
yeah.
imagine how it must have been like to, because I've heard stories from you like how much Nolan's movies have had an impact on you. But just walk me through the experience of the hype leading up to Oppenheimer, and how was it like watching in 70mm IMAX film, and then we can maybe just discuss the movie a little bit, because honestly I can't process it. I watched it in Prasads Hyderabad. It's not 70mm IMAX yet anymore, but still was something. I watched the movie, but I still can't process. I need somebody to like discuss it with, and I can't think of anybody more fitting than to discuss it with you. So yeah, just walk me through your experience.
Okay, so when you're approaching BFI, you either get off at the Waterloo station, which is a huge station, huge train station, and the only other significant building in that area that you can see is probably the BFI dome. It's not a dome, but it's like a cylindrical thing right in the middle
Yeah,
of the
like a
street.
full glass structure. I've seen pictures of it.
It's a glass structure. It's a roundabout in a way,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's very striking. You can't miss it. What you can miss is like how you enter the building, because you have to go through these passages and tunnels underneath, and then you reach the bottom floor of that glass shell, which is very shady, to be honest. But when you the moment you enter it, everything just changes completely. Like the decor, the everything is very modern. It's very well kept. And then there are like how in all the theaters there were these stairs that you had to climb through first to reach the screen. uh, I don't know if you know this, but in very old theaters, in single screen theaters, you had to climb a certain set of stairs,
Right.
and then you reach the screen. If you were in the balcony or like the upper deck area where like civilized people used to be, in that sense. So it was a very nostalgic thing in that sense, going through those stairs, turning around, and then revealing the whole entryway for the screen. And after that, you would have thought in older days that this is probably the upper deck of the screen. But no, you start from the bottom. That is the bottom. of the screen. And the screen is huge, absolutely huge. I think I have a clip wherein I'm standing there for like scale, and the screen is like right next to me, and it's like, I don't know how many feet it is, but it's like immensely tall. Everything, like the only thing that you see when you enter the theater is like just the screen and nothing else. You're just engulfed by it in a way. It was a very intense movie, and I think I was kind of expecting it to be somewhere along that line of, how Dunkirk was and how Prestige was. Not the most grandest of scale in terms of how the plots will be. It's not the most extravagant plot ever in that sense. It's obviously a real life story. So I was expecting the film to be very, very grounded. But I did not expect it to be so intense. For the preparation of the film, I did not read, but I listened to the whole audiobook, which is a 26-hour long audiobook, American Prometheus. And I listened to it in 3 days. 26 hours of audiobook in 3 days is very intense as well. But the movie was somehow more intense for me, which was, in my head, I was very prepared. In my head, I was like, I know what the twists and turns are going to be. I know what it's going to be like. And why is he saying this? What timeline is he jumping from here to there? But I somehow, even though I knew all of it, I still just like became very overwhelmed very quickly. And I think the moment where they start testing the bomb, I mean, it's not a spoiler because it happened in real life. So the moment that they start testing the bomb, the movie just took a different dimension for me after that. And I think I was very overwhelmed. And I think I still can't process as to what happened or like what took over me at that point of time. But most of us, were just sitting there at the end of the film, and we were just like, we didn't want to move after the film. You know how there are some
I get
movies
it.
where
I
you just
absolutely
like
get it. It
you
was
can't.
so gripping. You could, like, it just sucked you inside.
Yeah,
It was
and
such a gripping experience.
just because of that fact that I was so prepared for it, I knew the story inside and out, and I read it in a very intensive manner as well. And I was still overwhelmed by the film. I think that speaks a lot about the format in which it was presented as well. The huge screen was something which was very evident. I had seen the screen once before, but not for a 1570 presentation. It was a
Which movie again
generic
did you watch?
presentation. Watched Brahmastra.
Dude, you watched Brahmastra at BFI IMAX. That's your dedication to Bollywood. I respect that. Yeah, I just wanted to ask you that you have seen regular IMAX,
Yeah.
laser IMAXs. You've seen Noida ka IMAX. You've seen Finland ka IMAX. You've seen Sweden ka IMAX, and now you're seeing London ka 1570
Yeah.
IMAX. Like, it's true form, the most pristine IMAX film format. So just to describe it to the people who haven't ever watched a 70mm presentation before, how can you describe the quality of 70mm IMAX film?
I mean, it is obviously the most detailed and perhaps true to life form of any imagery that I've seen on screen. But I think enough has been said about that. What I want to tell you is the journey that I had to go through when watching it, and how I had to certainly adapt to the fact that this is extremely high quality. Because the difference between 1570 and the regular film was so evident that it was distracting. When they were fast switching between the whole 1570 and the normal IMAX,
70mm normal, no
the 65 mm.
5% and
Yeah,
15%.
between the 5 perf and
Yeah,
so
5%.
when they were switching between the 5 perf and 15 perforation film, it was such a hard change. It was such a hard change. The color grading changed. The warmth of the black and white film changed every now and then, and it was so different that it was in a way little distracting as well. I would say, and you had to get used to it that this is happening. When the opening shot when it reeled in, the raindrops and then Cillian Murphy's face, I was like, this is insane. And then it cuts to the regular 5 perforation film, and then I was like, oh, this is what I've been watching. And it was You know how when we switched from uh, 720 to 4K, uh, and like the whole generation shifted from like watching 720 YouTube videos to 4K YouTube videos because we had like high speed internet now and all of those things. It was that big of a change when we were watching that, in that sense, and it was also,
So it's like 480p to 1080p on a YouTube video or something like
yeah,
that.
like it's a very hard change. It's a very hard change. Like it's going from
Right.
the 3GP Nokia movies to like iPhone movies after that, which was it seems like it belongs in a different era altogether. And just the fact that it's from like 70s or 80s or something like that. It's an old school format. It's not a new format, and yeah, it's a very fascinating in that sense. But yeah, so when we were watching it, all of us had this sort of a conclusion that it was very distracting at first. Like watching it switch through all the aspect ratios was very, very distracting at first. But then when we got used to it, and by saying got used to it, we were like sucked into the story of the film. When we got sucked into the story of the film, we did not feel anything of that sense of any distraction, anything like that. I think the only thing that happened was that it added to the whole immersion aspect after that. But for the first 15 minutes, we were very, very, like you could see it in our faces that why did they have to go back to 5 perforation film? Like it was like
Yeah.
one of those things.
Why not shoot the entire thing in IMAX?
Yeah, because we didn't want that. We didn't want that. Yeah.
So, personally, do you think that will it be a downgrade for you to go back to and watch a digital projection? Because see, the thing is, a lot of people still have the mindset that digital and laser IMAXs are not real IMAXs. Do you think
Yeah.
those IMAX experience come close to
No, they
what you
can't.
just experienced, or like
They
what?
they don't come close. They don't come close because like
Wow.
I could just see the difference between two, like just like between 70 millimeters and 70 millimeter IMAX, and I could not imagine how it would have been had it just been like a 2K projection or like a 4K projection, which is like way lower quality. But then again, if I were to see this, or if I were to see the entire movie uh, in just a 4K presentation, with not such drastic difference between the quality, image quality, I think that I would have been fine in that sense. It's just that the changes were so drastic when they were switching scopes that it was, I could not have gone back to it at that moment of time, to be honest.
Cool. I think that's basically it. Thank you so much for giving me your time and like sharing your experience and giving that BFI IMAX
But yeah, it's
like a little bit of an insight as
your
to how
experience, yeah.
it feels like watching a movie in 70 mm. Thank you so much for joining me, Animesh. And again, guys, please subscribe to Animesh's channel. He's working on a kick-ass mini series right now, and he has ton of great videos on his channel already. And awesome, dude. It was awesome to discuss this movie with you. And yeah. So yeah, it's been a few days. I watched Oppenheimer again in IMAX, specifically at Luxe IMAX, Phoenix Market City at Chennai with a friend of mine, and it was an awesome experience. After watching back to back, even like a standard presentation at a giant theater, and this IMAX presentation at a normal IMAX theater, which is not even laser, I do believe that the IMAX experience does count for something. Now watching the movie again was like, again, insane. Like it's almost like watching the movie for the first time again, because there were so many details I missed, so many lines of dialogue I missed, and like you need to watch it twice to grasp the movie fully. And I'm glad I did. And the second time around, it was even better. And the main difference between this IMAX experience and the one in Prasads is the switching aspect ratios. Now, one thing I did realize was that there is not a lot of difference between 2.2 and 1.9, because 2.2 is already taller than traditional cinemascope, which is 2.4. And like if you do the math, if you count the pixels, it's about just 16% more image, I guess, and that's not a lot. Still, despite that fact, whenever those IMAX shots kicked in and it filled the screen from top to bottom, it just felt like something else. I don't know what is it about those IMAX shots, but I think the illusion of is that effect of a full screen image, and the image especially going from ceiling to floor and wall to wall. That's what creates immersion. That's when I realized that's the key ingredient of the IMAX experience. The image just going wall to wall, and it feels like a window. And Nolan uses IMAX as a tool for immersion more than anything else. So when those taller aspect ratio scenes kick in, you can immediately tell the way they are framed, and like they're so expansive. They just hit different, for the lack of a better term. So yeah, if you pick a closer seat, it substantially increases your field of view, and it appears to be a larger screen. And like that combined with the wall to wall, ceiling to floor image, that's what I think makes the IMAX experience so special. It's just so much more immersive than like black bars. And yeah, that's my main thought. And you might be thinking, did the lack of 4K laser projection hurt? A little bit. I didn't mind it that much because IMAX's 2K projection is some of the best in the world. Plus, they do use dual xenon projection, and that gives you a lot more extra brightness. And also combined with IMAX's DMR process or whatever it is, like the actual shots look a lot more cleaned up and sharp. Like a lot of the close-ups, they look very very sharp, and I couldn't even tell it's a 2K projection. The subtitles though are the only ones which suffer a lot, because you can tell it's a, you know, by the jagged edges you can see the pixelations around the subtitles. So that was the only thing which bothered me. Some wide shots did have certain level of pixelations, but one thing which I noticed was that there was a lot less grain in the IMAX version compared to the standard version. Maybe that's their DMR process at play, but that was good to see. So something about the black and white shots which I noticed is that all of them were very grainy. So I guess that the black and white film stock is itself very sensitive to light. And also I noticed, especially in the IMAX presentation, there was a lot of edge halation in a bunch of the black and white scenes, which I did not notice in the Prasads 4K standard presentation. And edge halation is basically like you'll see like a tinge of pink or green in certain edges of characters, which is like right against the light. And like it didn't bother me, but it's just like a nice interesting detail, which I just did not notice at all in the standard 4K presentation, but I noticed in IMAX. And also the IMAX shots, black and white shots, still had a lot of grain, which was interesting in both 4K and IMAX 2K. So yeah, that was just an observation. As far as sound goes, IMAX sound was awesome as well, and I think maybe it's got to do with the smaller auditorium, but the seat was vibrating harder than it did in Prasad's. Now there was one particular shot where Oppenheimer is just in this small auditorium where people are applauding for him, and there's just dead silence, and there is an effect of where the whole like shot is vibrating to show his like anxiety. And in that moment there is also like a very rampant use of the soundtrack, which is also like had a very vibrating sound to it. And I kid you not, for a brief moment I saw the subtitles vibrate, which can only mean that the speakers which are behind the screen, the left, center and right channels, they were so strong that they probably vibrated the entire screen. Maybe I'm just imagining things, but it's just one small thing I noticed, which I just felt like sharing. I did not grasp the entire film in the first viewing. I just got an essence of it, and like that's the thing about Nolan's films, you can just not focus on the details and like vibe with it, and you will still get the essence of the entire movie. But on the second viewing, I just appreciated those details even more, if that makes sense. But yeah, and like the last 40 minutes of the movie just turns into a straight up courtroom drama, so serious and it's just so good, and doesn't feel like a 3 hour movie. It just doesn't feel like a 3 hour movie. It felt like 2 hours 30 minutes, maybe 2 hours 20 minutes. And that ending shot, those few ending minutes, just pure mastery from Nolan's side, and also Cillian Murphy as well. And yeah, watching it with a South Indian crowd is the best thing you can ask for. Both the times when the movie ended and the screen said directed by Christopher Nolan, you could hear applause. And it just gives me chills that you have this collective experience where you like share these 3 hours and you experience something so good in front of you. So yeah, at the end, IMAX or non-IMAX, honestly, it doesn't matter. If you watch it in IMAX, you're gonna get a great experience. But if you don't watch it at an IMAX, it's fine. It's fine. I mean, the fact that you watch this in a movie theater at all, I think, counts a lot, because your price of admission to a movie theater is what is reflecting to the studios through the box office collections. And the more money this movie makes, that's an indication that the studios will make more movies like this. And yeah, so please watch Oppenheimer if you haven't already. If it's an IMAX, well and good. If it's not an IMAX, doesn't matter. And yeah, that was my Barbenheimer Oppenheimer experience. And you also got to hear from Animesh as well about his 70mm experience. But yeah, it's more about the movie and the experience than the theater itself. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Cheers.